All right, welcome. Today we are diving into what is basically a 1,500-year-old detective story. It's this amazing intellectual puzzle pulled right from the pages of the Talmud.
But before we get into the ancient stuff, let me ask you a modern question. Let's say you only have time for one thing today, your consistent, everyday jog or training for that special once-a-year marathon. Which one do you prioritize? It's that classic clash, the routine versus the truly remarkable.
Well, believe it or not, this is pretty much the exact same dilemma that the sages of the Talmud were wrestling with like 1,500 years ago. They were trying to figure out what really wins in the end, the steady power of routine or the magnetic pull of reverence for something special.
So here's where our case really kicks off. We've got this fundamental clash deep inside Jewish law. You've got two absolutely core principles, both super important. But what happens when they find themselves in a head-to-head conflict? Which one is going to get the right of way?
Okay, so let's meet our two main players in this drama. On one side, we have Tadir. This is all about what's frequent, what's consistent, the daily grind. Its whole principle is the frequent thing comes first. But then, on the other side, you've got Makudash. This is the sacred, the special, the holier act. You can just feel the tension, right? Does that steady consistency beat out special sanctity, or is it the other way around?
So, to solve this whole thing, the sages basically become detectives. They don't just throw out opinions. No, they go on a hunt for precedent. They start sifting through all the established laws about temple offerings, just looking for that one clear-cut case that's going to prove which principle is really the stronger one.
And boom, right away they find what looks like a slam dunk piece of evidence, Exhibit A. The daily offering, well, that's the ultimate tadir, right? It happens every single day. The special Shabbat offering is obviously more Makudash, it's holier, but the law says the daily one comes first. So, case closed for tadir, yeah?
Not so fast. This is the Talmud after all, and this is where our little detective story gets a really brilliant twist. That proof that looks so airtight, it's about to get seriously challenged. So the detectives, they keep digging. They bring in more evidence. Okay, what about this? The Shabbat offerings are weekly, so they're more frequent. The new moon offerings are monthly, less frequent. And guess what? Once again, the law says the more frequent one wins. So there is definitely a pattern emerging, and it seems to be pointing overwhelmingly in one direction. But, just like in any good mystery, sometimes the most obvious evidence can be the most misleading.
And here it is, the big turning point in the case. A single, incredibly powerful counterargument comes in and just completely dismantles the entire case that they just built. The investigation is suddenly blown wide open again.
Okay, so check out this counterargument. It's just so elegant. The sages reason that the special holiness of a day like Shabbat doesn't just apply to the special offering for that day. It's more like a rising tide of sanctity that lifts everything up, including the regular routine offering. So on Shabbat, both offerings are now at an equally high level of holiness. And when there's a tie in sanctity, what breaks the tie? Frequency, tadir. So these cases don't actually prove that frequency is stronger than sanctity. Nope! They just show what happens when sanctity is tied.
So with the whole temple offerings line of inquiry leading to a dead end, the sages pivot. And, like any good investigators, they start looking for clues in totally different areas of life. They turn their attention now to the laws of blessings and prayers. And they find some new evidence. In the Kiddush blessing for Shabbat, the very frequent blessing over wine comes before the special blessing for the day. And in Shabbat prayers, the daily afternoon prayer comes before the special additional prayer. So it looks like more wins for Tadir, right? But they hit the exact same wall. That whole rising tide of sanctity argument comes back and neutralizes these proofs too. The core question is still completely unsolved.
And this is where our story takes its most dramatic and honestly my favorite turn. The sages have this moment of insight where they realize maybe they've been asking the wrong question all along. They shift from this theoretical debate of which should come first to a really practical one. What happens if you actually mess up the order?
So let me ask you the new question. You know the rule. You're supposed to do the routine thing first. But oops, you make a mistake, and you accidentally start the special, sacred act instead. What do? Do you just finish what you started? Or do you have to stop everything and correct the order?
Let's break down the new scenario. You've got both offerings ready to go. By mistake, the infrequent one gets slaughtered first. The process has already begun. The question now isn't theoretical, it's a full-blown procedural crisis. Do you just carry on, or do you have to hit the pause button and go back to do the frequent one first?
So after all of these dead ends and rejected theories and twists and turns, they finally find it. The smoking gun. The one piece of evidence that cracks the whole case. And it's found in the laws of one of the most important sacrifices of all, the Paschal offering, the Passover lamb.
And the answer comes straight from the Mishnah. It says that if you mistakenly slaughter the infrequent Paschal lamb before the frequent daily offering, the act itself is still valid. But, and this little but is the key to everything, you don't just continue. You have to get someone to stir the blood of that Paschal offering to keep it from setting, while you stop, go back, and perform the entire daily offering first.
Okay, so let's just break down this final verdict. The mistake happens, but instead of just letting it slide, the required action is to literally pause the sacred Paschal ritual right in the middle of the process. The correction is to then complete the frequent daily offering from start to finish, and only after that's all done can you go back to the Paschal offering you started by mistake. The conclusion is just undeniable. The principle of tadir, of frequency, is so powerful that it actually demands that you stop and correct the order even when a sacred act is already underway.
And that leads us to the crucial point of this entire Talmudic investigation. Here's the big takeaway. The routine, the consistent, the daily practice is seen as so fundamentally important that it has the power to interrupt an act of incredible sanctity just to make sure it keeps its proper place. Consistency, as it turns out, is its own powerful form of holiness.
And so that leaves us with one last thing to think about. How does this ancient logic, this idea of prioritizing the consistent over the consecrated, apply to our own lives? In a world that's filled with our own daily jogs and once-a-year marathons, how do we balance our most sacred, special moments against the deep, quiet power of a simple, consistent routine?